So, live from AHR 2025 today, we're joined by Tony Stark. I meant Tony Mormino, the HVAC doctor told me to say that. And Tony is the host of HVAC TV, and he is an industry educator, a fellow member of the Insight Partners and Air Control Concepts family. He's had a big year from helping to through rebuilding efforts after Hurricane Helene devastated his small town of Marshall, North Carolina, and dealing with constant marketing changes within our rapidly growing company, all while continuing to create top-tier HVAC content. So today we'll talk about his journey from sales to educator, the power of conversation and community in HVAC, and of course, all things AHR. So Tony, welcome and thank you for your time today.
Well, I'm glad to be here and thank you for the invite. And I'm glad you read what we're going to talk about because I wasn't sure what we were talking about because I didn't read this yet. But it sounds like a great topic. It's right up my alley. So.
Yes, we're here to talk about you, sir. so good time.
Is that how it works when you're a guest on a podcast?
That is how it works.
I'm usually not the guest, so this is a lot easier, actually.
I know, so this is fun for me.
This is good.
So, what was it? 2 or 3 weeks into when I started with our company, you threw me on your show. So yeah. I was about as prepared as you are for this one.
Live on LinkedIn, too.
Yeah,
so
I feel like this is fair.
No, I love it.
So, a lot of people don't know that you and I work together. We started our show weekend early on Saturday with the Air Control Concepts party. So, how was the relief from being done with that? Now moving on to the rest of it.
You know, the party was amazing. Excellent job to Heather Robinson and Courtney Sanders, and also my wife, Stephanie, who's here in the crowd filming us. Hello, honey. And everybody else that made that happen. I was just one player in that, but it was an awesome event. We rented out the whole Hard Rock Cafe. You know, we are part of the Air Controls Concept family, which owns 30 to 50 brands at some point. That many, I'm not sure right now. That's why I'm giving you the 30 to 50. But we had all of them there. I think there was over 1,000 people. It's just a great way to get together. We had vendors there, some of our manufacturers. Great way to get together and meet each other. You know, we see a lot of each other online, but we don't get to meet in person. So it was great. But yes, I'm glad it's over. For us, it's a party, but it's a working party.
That's right.
And it's a lot of work. So yesterday we were like, okay, we need to take a break. Then we can spend a couple days here. Hey, Dave. A couple days here on the show floor. So.
Well, and then also.
Am I not supposed to do that? Wave to the audience. Hey.
Yes. Wait. It's different because used to you're sitting behind a mic and you're just staring at yourself on the TV screen or computer screen. So it's right. Different when you get to sit out in front of people.
I love this. I got to find a way to do in-person podcasts from Marshall, North. There's not a lot of people in Marshall, North Carolina. That's the problem.
Well, we just need to build a studio and we'll truck them in.
I told my wife New York City is probably a good hub, but she said that's not happening. So.
Anyway. I think she appreciates the small town life.
I do too. It's very nice.
And I can't help it. I was born and raised about an hour from where you live now, so I much appreciate the little small town. So then Sunday night, we went to the 2025, I think it's the 5th annual HVAC Tactical Awards. And somebody I know picked up a piece of hardware. I don't know who that guy is, but apparently there's a new influencer of the year in our midst.
Yeah, I was completely shocked and honored, honestly. Just to get nominated was a shock. To win was a double shock. But HVAC Tactical Awards last night, shout out to them. What a great event. I was so impressed. I mean, really, there's nothing like that in HVAC that I've ever seen. I mean, our party was pretty killer too, but from an award ceremony scenario, billing the community and just the folks who got up in appreciation, I was one of those. I was so grateful and appreciative of that award. So yeah, it was an amazing event. And congratulations, you got nominated too.
Yep. So
you passed winner, right?
0 for 2. I'm 0 for 2.
0 for 2?
Yeah.
Vegas, come on.
Yeah, so I said if you got to win into town, Vegas is a pretty good town to win in.
There you go.
Maybe that'll translate to the craps table later if that happens. Who knows?
Well, no one's asking me, but if they ask me, I'll give you a vote.
There's also, you don't see him right now, but in the crowd there's another very special friend and a very special winner from the Tactical Awards. So the Lifeline Tech of 2025, Mr. HVAC Foodie Martinovich is in the back here. We put him back there because he's an engineered air guy, and we're Aon people around here. So
put him in the back. You got to keep him off camera.
That's right. So I know it's early in the show, but there's a lot of manufacturers, industry pros in this place. And this is, how many shows have you been to? 20?
I've been in the industry for 24 years, but I don't know how many shows I've actually been to. I took probably a decade where I didn't go. So this is probably my 10th show, I would guess. And
So how do you approach trying to get the most out of your trip now? And I'm sure it's different than when you were in sales and sales management, now that you're in content creation and other things. So how has that kind of changed your perspective on how you look at laying your show day out?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it is completely different than when I was a sales guy. So sales guys come here with an agenda, probably to meet new manufacturers, to build the relationships or strengthen the relationships with their existing manufacturers. My goal here is to get content from our, the products that we rep, mostly in Insight and Hobbs and some of the other brands as well. But from a content creator standpoint, this is like a dream because everybody's right here. Their products are here. They're knowledgeable. So I set up meetings, at the booths at specific times, and I'm like, okay, here's my calendar. You fill in when you want me there, which was probably a huge mistake because now I got to walk all the way to one end to the other. I got to make it in sections, like we're going to be in section 4,000 to 6,000 at this time. So, anyway. But it's great. We got the video camera. I got the crew here to help me out, so it's awesome.
Well, and being deeply involved in HVAC education, what are some of the biggest trends or innovations that you probably haven't noticed them all yet because we just got here, but what are some things you're expecting to see? Maybe a lot of A2L change stuff and some other things coming our way.
Yeah, a lot of the refrigerant transition, A2L, R32, R454B, and also heat pumps.
Yep.
Heat pumps are real hot right now due to the electrification, decarbonization movement. So
a lot of cold climate heat pumps too. So like inverters digging deep down, a lot of 100% heat at negative temperatures to pass. What is it? Cold climate challenge for the DOE.
Yep. So a lot of that probably.
So on this show, I like to tell a story. I like to hear how people got into this. So I know a lot of people kind of know where you're from, but you're a University of Florida guy. You're here in Orlando. I know you built most of your career in Jacksonville, Florida area. So does this kind of feel like homecoming a little bit when you come to this show?
Muggy, humid Februarys. This feels like Florida.
Sounds about right.
Terrible hotel air conditioning, as usual in this area.
Sounds about right.
But it does feel a little bit like home, yeah. I grew up in Florida. I grew up in Tampa, went to high school there, and then I went to college in Gainesville, and then started my career in Jacksonville. I was there for 10 years, so most of my life in Florida, yeah.
Yeah, and then your dad was a technician, so that's kind of how you got introduced to this.
Yeah.
Similar to me.
Yeah, he was a residential guy, took me on some jobs, got it kind of, familiar with it, and I ended up going into sales. I ended up going to engineering school and going into sales after that. Now I'm passing that on to my son, who he's been to a few factories with me doing the video camera, and he just gravitates towards the guys working on the equipment.
Yep.
He's a hands-on guy, so I love that I'm at a point where I could just expose him to all this stuff and say, hey, what do you like? Because he's got to see what salesmen do, marketing, etc. He likes to work with his hands, so now he's a service tech. I guess you would call him an apprentice with Insight Partners now. So, insanely proud of him.
No, and I'm glad to see the family continue. I know it's been interesting. I got into this the same way. My dad was a residential guy. I grew up in a work truck. What would you say is probably your most vivid memory of an impression of what it was like, or did you ever get to work with him?
Yeah, so I learned a lot from working with my dad, and I think the biggest thing I learned is, just to take care of the customer and be human on the job. He was really big about that, almost to the point where I'm like, Dad, let's go to the next job. So I'm like looking at the work order tickets, and I'm like, come on, let's check these things off. I'm a box checker. He would drive me crazy. We'd sit there and have coffee with him for 20, 30 minutes, but he was a good man at doing that.
My dad was the same way. We would go and we'd put a system in people's house, and then 3 weeks later, it's a Saturday night, and here they come walking through the door. They're coming to have dinner in the house. I don't think Dad has ever met a stranger, and probably never will, especially when it comes to this.
That's great.
Having worked in so many different roles, what was really the turning point where you knew this was the industry in general you wanted to be a part of?
The industry in general? I knew, when I was in engineering school, I was graduating, there weren't any sales jobs that I knew of for engineering, right? And, they had this new thing called the World Wide Web. Do you remember when that came out?
I do.
And it was totally useless when I was in college because there's nothing on there, but there was no information on engineers plus sales.
Yep.
And one of the big manufacturers happened to be doing a talk at my college, and I went and listened to them, and I ended up working for that guy for 10 years. So that's what got me into this particular industry, HVACs.
What were some of your biggest kind of initial challenges as you stepped into sales and figuring out that side of the industry?
I'm not real good in social settings, to be honest with you.
I don't believe you.
Which is not real good if you're a sales guy and you're young. You know, I was never really good at I'm not a relationship builder in terms of going out drinking and going to golfing and that kind of thing. And I'm more of a nerdy, I'll come and do a psychometric presentation with you 5 days a week. I love doing that kind of stuff. So I think for me, that was my biggest challenge. I was always better with engineers than contractors for that reason. That was probably it. And getting in front of people and doing presentations was not natural for me either. It looks like it now, but I was terrified in the beginning.
It takes time. I kind of struggle with it a little bit. Even now, when I'm much more introverted a lot of times. My relationships with contractors and customers, a lot of them are decades long, but it's a different style of relationship in some ways.
For sure.
And I think the pandemic changed a lot of how we interacted with customers. I know the whole reason this show happened was pandemic, just like your whole turning point in your career too. So it's changed how we interact with people day to day. It's changed how we build a relationship with the customer. It's almost not as face-to-face based as it used to be. Now it's much more call me when you need me and we'll figure it out from there. So being an industry that is obviously full of characters such as yourself, who were some of the mentors or people along the way that really helped shape your early career?
Early career? So I started working with, when I started with the big manufacturer, rhymes with crane. There was a guy named Steve Pollock and another guy named Craig Miller, Joe Fallwider, Kenny Allen. And Kenny Allen, funny enough, works with us now in our Atlanta office. But they were there, they'd been there longer than me, so they took me under their wing and mentored me. Art Fox, my original manager, was a brilliant engineer. More recently, I would say, when we started because of COVID too, we talked about that. And I started as a sales guy at Insight Partners, and Mark Murray asked me if I would do more of the online content and ultimately move into marketing. And I got to work with Mark, and he's my boss now. And Mark's been a very big mentor for me because he's the president of Insight Partners. And so that side of the business I knew very little about.
Yep.
So you know what I mean? When you're a sales guy, it's almost
I know.
Just to talk to someone in that position originally was very nerve-wracking for me because I wasn't on that side of the business. So I'd say Mark as of recently, and Chris Adams, everybody, you as well, everybody at Insight's been so supportive and been great.
Well, and like I said, luckily you just threw me into the fire when we started, so we knew we were going to be friends anyway. We didn't have much of a choice. If you could go back and give your younger career self some advice, what would it be?
Oh, man. I think the biggest thing, I've always struggled with way overthinking, fear and anxiety of things that I think are going to happen that had never happened, staying up all night worrying about things that shouldn't. Find a way to stop worrying so much would be my advice. I'd say that advice to anybody. I tell that to my kids today because I was wrecked with overthinking and oh my gosh, what if this thing happens? What if this job doesn't go well? I didn't sleep very well, but I went through that for many years, decades. So that would be if I had a chance to meet my younger self. I was like, look, go talk to some people who know how to deal with this because this isn't a healthy way to live. So you throw a couple kids on top of that too, it doesn't help the matter. I've learned.
Well, but it helps when you have a long-term partner.
Absolutely. Thank God I'm married to Stephanie because we've been through, like anybody who's been married a while, 24 years this year, we've been through some ups and downs, and we're still together, which is good.
I know. Mine's still putting up with me 10 years down the road, so we'll see. So let's talk a little bit about reinventing your career into who you are now. I'll kind of start it with a quote for someone you and I both listened to a bunch of, is Mr. Gary Vee. So it's never too late to change your life. You're not stuck. You're just early in your story.
Ooh, I love it.
So you made a huge transition from sales to content creator and educator in the industry. What really was the moment that pushed you to take the leap besides just Mark?
Pushed me to take the leap. I think early on in the COVID thing, I'm going to talk about the transition into doing online content, which to me is like I said before, our first live show, I literally remember sitting there about to hit the button. Chris Adams, who was a big supporter of what we were doing, was on there with me, but he was he was my wingman. And I was about to hit the button and I'm like, oh my God, are we really going to do this? I was petrified. And he was like, he has no fear about anything like that. She's like, well, that's what you wanted. Just go ahead and hit the button. Let's go live. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Of course, we hit the button and the streaming software crashed. It said, not available right now. Try again later. And so anyway.
Sounds about right.
I don't know if that answers the question, but for me, I have learned there's things there's a fixed thing we should be doing in life, right? And for me, I don't think sales for a long time was the thing I should be doing, but I let fear keep me there.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
No, I completely agree.
I think we get paralyzed by fear and we don't do the thing we're supposed to do. And what I've learned is, I used to wait for me not to be afraid to try new things. That doesn't work that way with me. I have to try the new things scared.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden you grow and you grow from that, you expand from that. It's the weirdest thing ever, but that's been my experience with that. So I was like, F this fear, I'm just going to do it. Can I say that? F this? Is that okay?
I would mean, so this show was originally HVAC beer and bullshit. So.
There you go. And you mentioned Gary Vee, so he does a lot of that too.
Yeah,
so
that's okay.
I would just say, if you're stuck and you're miserable and you're unhappy and you want to change, don't let fear stop you from making that change. That's what I have learned all this time. And I've walked through, even yesterday to get up in front of that crowd and speak, I was praying beforehand. I was I hope they do my category first. And of course we were last. So it's you get put in these positions. But I went up there and I spoke from my heart and I was I'm just going to tell it like I feel it. And I think it was great. So.
Well, I think if there's anything about this industry, it appreciates realism. It appreciates speaking from the heart, being who you are, and being an individual, and not being part of the crowd. And some of that is, how did your background in sales shape how you approached starting to create content? So that you could look at it from both perspectives of now learning marketing after already doing sales. Kind of how did that change the way you thought about it?
Wow, that's a great question. So what I've learned about creating content, which if you're not bringing value, you're not reaching anybody and no one cares, right? So it's all about bringing value. So I try to look at it from the standpoint, if I'm going to make something, I'm making this for me. Am I trying to get something for me? Am I trying to give and bring value to somebody? So the background in sales and engineering has been a monumental help for that, because a typical content creator or marketing person doesn't have that technical background. So It's very difficult for them to do what I get to do. And I don't look at what I do any different than talking to a group of engineers or a group like this. I just am doing it online at scale, to a lot more people. So.
Well, and I think that kind of leads into the next question too, is really what's your strategy for making HVAC education both informative and entertaining? Because that was also one of the struggles I had when I started. There's so many people that are doing educational content that I knew I was not in the technical mind to do that for a lot of people. So how do you look at it different to make sure yours remains engaging and entertaining?
Yeah, so another Gary Vee thing, empathy is really powerful with that. Understanding, not to be preachy. Hey, you got to make sure you do this. I always started out with look, please pay attention to this because I've made this mistake and it hurts. It's painful. And so I kind of frame it in that way. And to make it human, the people who are more human and authentic online are the one who makes the real connections.
Correct.
So I try in the education I'm going to talk about this, but here's why, and here's why it's important, and don't be afraid to do this. And I try to mix a little, our motto is to educate and empower the HVAC community on our YouTube channel.
Yep.
I love the empowerment side. That's probably about 10 or 15% what we do, because it's really about HVAC education. But to empower people to understand why this is important, because, our industry, what we do is important. It's super important. I've walked into chiller plants before where I've sold 1,500 centrifugal chillers in a hospital. They trusted me to sell this equipment. You know what I mean?
Yep.
When you see it on paper versus going to that actual job site, it's a big deal. So.
Well, and I think people being empowered in this industry is important, because a lot of times it is hard to walk in and do those things. And sometimes you just need to know there's a cheerleader somewhere that says you got this.
Yeah, man, we all need that, and I think it's important. For me anyway, I want to keep growing. I want to keep getting better and doing what I'm doing. And I've learned too, when you're creating content or trying to grow something, really I need to get out of the results business, because I'm not in charge of the results. I can post something and 5 people to see it. Usually when I create something, I'm this is gonna kill. This is gonna crush
That's
it.
when
People
it goes
are gonna
nowhere.
And it's freaking crickets. So I'm oh my God, I spent 2 days putting this together. And then you post some.
Yep.
I just did this LinkedIn article where I posted this dryer vent here's why you see fog coming at our dryer vent. And I did a thing like that that reached like 1.4 million people. So you just don't know.
You never have any idea where the algorithm is.
Right, it's crazy.
So what would you say have been some of the most rewarding moments since moving to content creation and HVAC TV?
Well, last night was pretty darn cool.
That's true. That was a very rewarding moment. I'll get there.
Yeah, I mean, just that was good. Just the general idea of getting to do something I enjoy. Like, I truly do enjoy sharing the content. I like helping people. I like getting them from point A to point B in whatever journey they're on. I can't think of one specific thing, but, just doing the live shows and stuff like that has been a major, it's been great. So
what's really next for HVAC TV?
I'm not sure. We're actually kind of at a stage now where we're trying to figure out how to, make it better, what to do with it. We grow every year. We get more, by growth, I mean more views and more subscriptions and stuff like that. We get more attention. We have more people inviting us to their factories now, which wasn't happening a few years ago. So I don't know what's in the future for it. Right now, we're just going to keep growing it, and we're trying to tie in all these. This is probably something that's going to happen. We're going to tie in all these other brands under Air Control Concepts. Like I have people from Dorsey coming on there. I have people from Northridge coming on there. I have the Climas, New Jersey and New York coming on there. So using that as a tool for all of us to lift each other up and lift the HVAC community up at the same time.
Well, it just gives you that much broader group of talent to pick from and get people that are really specific about different parts of the industry that you can have a deep dive conversation with. Yeah. If you want to look smart, have a lot of smart people on your show. That's right. That's why people think I know so much, but I just have a lot of experts on my show. So we'll start to wrap it up a little bit, talking community over competition. One thing I talk about on the show a lot is collaboration over competition. There's enough work for all of us. Mm-hmm. Why should we all be pitted against each other all the time? But some of it really for you, I have to say, it's community over anything. Your town, like I said, was absolutely devastated by the hurricane several months ago. There were a lot of places in Florida that were as well, including your office and Sean's. So you were office homeless. How did that experience change your perspective on community and just resilience of people in a very devastating, traumatic situation? Yeah, so the town we live in is Marshall, North Carolina, population 650. We're outside of Asheville, which is the big city compared to where we are. Small valley, mountain town, downtown, like out of Mayberry. I mean, it's really cool. It's really just a classic little city. Not very cool if you're having a flood, because it's a perfect place for a flood to come through, because it's in a deep valley there. I think the biggest thing, and we were fortunate, we did lose the office, but our home, we're in a cabin up 2,000 feet, so we were fine in terms of floods. We lost power, but nothing. But the biggest eye-opener for me were a couple things. One is, if you don't have some supplies at your house, get some basic supplies. Yep. Drinking water, food. A radio. I'm shocked how many people don't have like an AM/FM radio in their home. Anymore. Not about. You can't even go buy one. You can go buy one. We bought ours on Amazon. We bought a shortwave one. That's a whole other discussion. You can buy everything on Amazon. You can buy everything on Amazon. Get some of that stuff. My wife is a prepper. Thank God. We had the oil lamps. We had the candles. We had the radio. We had the ham radio. We had all this kind of stuff. The generator, which I neglected, so we couldn't get it started for 2 days. I have it now ready to go in case we need it. But I preach that because if you did not have water, you could have literally died if you were like elderly. Yeah. That's how much people could not get to us. They just could not get to us. We had helicopters dropping stuff in. But the biggest eye opener for me, one is it gave me a new respect for just gratitude, for what we have in life. And the other thing is the way the community came together. Like my friends were like, when does help come? Like there's no help. There's nobody there's no cavalry coming. We had to come together as a community, and our community is real diverse, right? Yep. You've got one side of the fence, the other side of the fence, you got the spiritual crystal shop, you got the Baptist church, but nobody cared. Nobody cared. Because it's not what it's about anymore. When the flood waters went away, we all got in there and shoveled mud for weeks. We didn't care what you were doing, the political side you're on or religious. So that was the biggest eye-opener for me, just to see the community come together. No one complained either. Lots of tears, but no one was complaining. Well, and I grew up in Western North Carolina, and it's always community is who you got. Yeah, That's the way it is. And you can all bicker and bitch and argue and fight, but at the end of the day, you can call your friend and they'll come help you.
Yeah.
And you touched on a little bit of this. What was my next question? But seeing people come together in the wake of disaster really does shift priorities a lot of times. So, thinking about that, how has that actually changed your approach and added to how you create uplifting and positive content for our industry?
That's a good question. I mean, I went into full-blown CNN reporter mode when that happened.
Oh, you did.
Like, it was crazy. My wife, too, a lot of credit to my wife. She's been spending a lot of time and work getting donations to build tiny conversion sheds, we call them. Conversion shed.
It's beating me to all my cool things I was going to drop.
Yeah. So we'll drop that in a minute. So, what were we talking about? Oh, yeah. So I was able to do something I never did before. It's so funny. I'd never dreamed, because we're an HVAC channel, like, why am I going to put this on there? Right?
Yeah.
And then I was like, why not? I mean, we're human. Our office was affected.
Right. It's
affecting how to overcome adversity. Like, that's the topic. It goes with the empowerment part of the mission statement, right?
Yep.
So that was able. One of the coolest things that happened was we were helping an elderly folks who lost their home. They lost everything. We were in there trying to get them out. It was just and there's so many stories like that. And I was outside. I went live because we were going live to try and, hey, we still need help. If you want to help, here's how to help. You can pray, you can send money, don't send this. We already got too much of that. You know what I'm saying? We got water coming out of our you-know-whats. While I was on that live show, a helicopter landed right behind me. Samaritan's Purse helicopter. And I was like, what? We ran over there. So, it was just great to be in that position. I met people here at the show for the first time. I never met them in person, who came up to me, like, we've talked on TikTok.
Yep.
Like, people were messaging me, where do I give? And I would tell them, go give to Samaritan's Purse. Because I'm sure there's a lot of great ones, but that's the one I saw a lot of. And I ran into someone earlier, and he's like, man, I gave to Samaritan's Purse because of your recommendation. I was like, wow, cool. So, stuff does work. So.
Well, and that's where you see kind of the broader reach of what building a community in this industry can be, is it stretches far, far beyond what we thought it could. But you get that because you are human on camera, which is the hardest thing for any of us to do anyway.
Right, for sure.
So, and we know the industry can be competitive. Collaboration leads to success, as you guys have seen, as your wife has seen. I know you had people from all over the place that were bringing in donations for the tiny homes. And how do you learn to balance that healthy competition while supporting others in the industry? Because you want to win, but you want to see your friends win too. So how do you kind of strike that balance?
I don't know. I'm totally agnostic to the competition. When I see someone, like one of our competitors started a podcast recently, I listened, I was like, hey, this is pretty good. I'm cool with that. I like that because it rises us all up. You know what I mean?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So I don't look at I look at me, I want to get better at what I do, and whatever the competition's doing, whatever.
Well, and it's really, I think the last couple of years, more than the first few that we were all doing this, we continue to see a much bigger movement toward promoting positivity and growth rather than just cutthroat competition.
Yeah.
Why do you think that shift is so important?
Well, for me personally, the reason I like to give back and promote that is because it helps me. It's counterintuitive, but the more you give and the more you help, the more you get.
Reap what you sow.
It's reap what you sow, right? It's so true though. When you give, from a content creator or a business standpoint, the idea of giving something away for free in terms of content is opposite to what you would think would grow your business. It's the exact thing you need to do to grow your business. The more free stuff you give away, in terms of education, knowledge, things like that, the more you will build trust and grow your business.
Correct.
So you get it back. You reap what you sow. Yeah.
So if there's one message you would like to leave with the HVAC industry about the power of community, what would that be?
Well, I am really big on us all trying to help rise each other up. I don't have a good slogan for that. I need to come up with one. But, helping each other, especially I see a lot of young folks online trying to do their thing, and they're showing you better have some thick skin if you throw your install online.
That's
if you're new, because you're going to get a lot of comments. So I would say constructive criticism is great. We all need that. But let's not be cruel about it and don't be mean. Some of these comments, why are you being mean, bro? He's trying to learn, right?
Yep.
So in that respect, let's help each other, build each other up. And if you can give back to the community, try and give back and help.
Well, and lastly, so where can people connect with you and follow your journey in HVAC TV?
So YouTube, HVAC TV, at HVAC TV, just type that in and we'll pop up. We have a podcast by the same name, so this will be on the podcast. So, and if you're listening on the podcast, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. I appreciate it. If you were here at the live show, thank you for being here. So Tony, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you speaking with me, the trade crew, and the audience here. If you're not following HVAC R&D online, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at hvac.rnd. You can find me on LinkedIn, Trade Hounds, and Facebook as the HVAC R&D Podcast. Thank you for listening to the show on your favorite platform, whatever it may be. Please follow the show, like and rate it. Leave me a review. If I'm terrible, tell me. If I'm great, thanks. Share the show with your friends. Don't forget to check out the website, hvacrnd.com, and Swag Shop. And if you want to work with me, you know how to do that. So everybody have a great AHR. Have a great week. Thank you so much, and I'll catch y'all soon.
Thank you, Ron.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, brother. Awesome.